All right, Mr. President, and I want to say to my friend Joe Manchin, wonderful speech, really had a lot of meaning for me as someone who knows you very well, but also to all of us. You've touched everybody's life in this room and many people beyond. So I just want to say a few words about my colleague and my friend, my fellow senator from West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin. In just a few short weeks, Senator Manchin, but we all call him Joe, will be retiring from the Senate. But it's safe to say, and he's already guaranteed us, that it will not be the last time that we hear from him. Before he leaves us, I'd just like to take a moment to highlight my perspective of his impressive and successful career for the country, but particularly for our state of West Virginia. I'd also like to acknowledge Joe's better half, Gail, up there, and his wonderful family. Gail has endured all the hard work that comes with public service in her own right. And I would like to personally thank her and both of them as a great couple, but also a wonderful and beautiful family that you have. And I'm so happy that they're here today. It seems like just like yesterday that Joe was knocking on my door at 1010 Wilkie Drive in Charleston, West Virginia. He was there to measure the carpet in the house that my husband and I had just purchased as newlyweds. This was over 40 years ago. And he measured that carpet, and he told me after I recounted the story to him later, he could lay that carpet today if he needed to. So fast forward today, Joe's serving in his 14th year as a United States Senator. After serving our state in the House of Delegates, in the state Senate, Secretary of State, and as governor, we went through a couple tragedies, really tough tragedies when Joe was our governor. And I can say, with maybe one exception, maybe my dad, or they might be equal, I've never seen such a compassionate, empathetic, and effective governor during really, really tough times. So I'm going to miss working side by side with him, but I know that the relationship that we've built over these years will continue for years to come. Joe's been the senior senator from West Virginia for all of my 10 years of my tenure. And the reality is, I got big shoes to fill here. And in case I forget that, Joe reminds me of that every single day. Sometimes we disagree, but when we disagree, we do it respectfully and on the merits. We might disagree, we don't become disagreeable. The next day, we get up and fight for the things that we both believe in. And that is to focus our energy on improving the lives of our neighbors. That's how Joe sees his constituents. Everybody's Joe's neighbor. And that's what makes him a relentless advocate for our state. We share the same goals, all of us do, in mind of helping our states and our constituents. And in some ways, Joe and I have served like a tag team for our state. Sometimes he shows up when I can't get there and he fills in for me. I show up when he gets there and I can't get there and I'll fill in for him. And then we can come from both, we can do the double press. Where we come from the Republican side or the Democrat side. Now we got the independent side on our side. So we can really press, I think, and what that does is really has West Virginia punching above our weight here in the United States Senate. So it could be backing West Virginia jobs and economic development, fighting for our coal miners, standing up for our veterans, or addressing the challenges that face our rural communities. Joe has always led with conviction and a very steady hand. I don't have time to list all of the efforts and successes that we've been able to work on together, and he's done many of these before I got here and way before I even became a senator. UMWA pension bill, you mentioned that. New River Gorge Park and Preserve, huge victory for us. Economic development issues that Joe mentioned, bipartisan infrastructure law, Mountain Valley Pipeline, Appalachian Regional Clean. It's interesting we have the same sort of recall of the things that we've been able to work on. Jesse's Law, that Joe really pushed through in memory of a fellow state senator whose daughter lost her life in an overdose. So many, many more. He's enlisted me to help steer him sometimes to get the West Virginia victories, and I'm so proud of the accomplishments that we've had together. So thank you for that partnership, Joe. It's really been important to me. Aside from his love of our home state, Joe possesses many other qualities worthy of a leader and a statesman. There's much to say about Joe Manchin. He's a deal maker for sure. Probably started as a salesman, yes. Voice of reason, a defender, as he said, of Senate traditions, and, as Politico said, the most powerful man in Washington. What do we think about that, Joe? I assume Joe would just as well want to be remembered as a good and steady friend. There are people in West Virginia who say if you want a friend, get a dog. I wasn't sure if I was actually going to say that in light of your successor, but I said it anyway. I assure you, those folks have never met Joe Manchin. 20 years ago, I joined an all-male, all-Democrat West Virginia delegation here in Washington. I joked with Joe that I forced them to get out of the male restroom so we could have a delegation meeting. But Joe was always a warm and welcoming presence. He always picks up the phone if you need to chat. He's always ready for a joke, that's for sure, and he's been a shoulder to lean on during personal times. When he was governor, Joe and Gail Manchin invited my whole family back to the governor's mansion, where my parents had lived for 12 years, to show us around. It was a really special evening. It was a simple and kind gesture that meant a lot to our whole family, especially my mom and dad. Years later, at my father's funeral, Joe delivered the eulogy and talked about his good friend, my dad, who Joe always called Chief. Joe's always been there for every West Virginia family. I'll note that sometimes Joe can be just a bit too present. When I'm home in West Virginia, he's sometimes like a shadow. I won't even tell about the last time I saw you. He's sometimes like a shadow I can't shake. One night, many Christmases ago, I was running out of the house with my husband, Charlie, and we were late for somewhere we needed to go, but the doorbell rings. I open the door, it's a group of Christmas carolers, and lo and behold, there is Joe Manchin singing Christmas carols. I don't know, they must have needed a baritone. I don't know what happened. But he's always there, even when you don't know when you really need him. And my colleagues can testify, he has more energy than anybody I've ever met. He's everywhere. He's always traveling. He's always got that leg going, too. I've noticed that. And he's always going fast. He has a prodigious lead foot. One I've personally experienced myself riding in motorcycles and in cars with him while traversing the country roads of West Virginia. There was the one time we were traveling home late at night together. We had just going into Beckley, and I turned to Joe and I said, have you ever been stopped for speeding? He said, more times than you'd want to know. And the reason I asked, because I saw the light in the rearview mirror. Here he comes. The guy leans in, the trooper leans in, takes one look at Joe and says, hey, Governor. And then Joe leans over to me and says, well, look who I've got over here. And the trooper says, just be careful going on up the turnpike, but before I leave, can I take a selfie with the two of you? We haven't seen that. I happen to believe every man or woman lucky enough to be elected to the Senate embodies the unique qualities of his or her state, and that is Joe in a nutshell. An honest, caring, hardworking individual with a bit of West Virginia appetite for exciting and dangerous. That's because Joe's roots run deep in West Virginia. He's West Virginian through and through. Never does his gaze wander from what he sees as his moral obligation to improve the lives of West Virginians. Joe's love of the Mountain State is the engine that powered his pursuit of public office, and I'm sure it will continue to power his efforts once he leaves. Joe may be leaving us, but I suspect his presence will continue to be felt in the many lasting relationships he has created over the years of his public service. I'm even more certain that Joe will always be available for that phone call. So congratulations again, Joe. It's been a privilege to serve with you, and thank you for everything you've done for our state and our nation. We're very appreciative.